never driven in their lives, and they're doing it at different times of the day. They're driving right up to students' houses to deliver food and schoolwork, but also before this even started, they made a personal phone call to every family on those routes to see, do you need food or not? Our administrative assistants, with all the chaos that has been happening, they're just the calm. We really needed that. They're getting questions that we don't even have the answers to yet, but they help keep people calm. They fill in where they're needed. They put out fires. And then last but not least, our teachers. You think about paradigm shift. We were ready for e-learning. We were ready for a snowstorm where we had a couple days of no school. This is completely different. They had 8 days to completely change how we deliver instruction. And they've researched best practices. I can't wait for you to see what they've come up with. It's really some solid stuff. They've prepared parents to help be teaching assistants, the stuff that they're going to put out. And also remember, they've done this for families with internet and for families without. So I just want to shout out to the whole Mora School staff for all they've done in the last 8 days.
Absolutely.
Here, here.
And I would concur with that. And I would take it, when Brent said last but not least, I would take that within our administrative team and all of our directors as well as our district office staff, our high school office staff, and our elementary office staff. And especially when we talk about working remotely for the future as much as possible with the stay-at-home order that starts on Friday night. We're encouraging our staff to stay home. This week I encouraged them to stay home, and they wouldn't stay home. They kept coming in and said, we feel like we're abandoning the ship and we're not going to do that. So they put in a lot of hours from March 15th with a superintendent conference call at 8 o'clock in the morning, a press conference at 10 o'clock, and then that day the administrative team came up and we had a teleconference to determine what we were going to do on Monday morning. And these guys, that entire team worked tirelessly to get things in place for that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The planning period starts and we're going right straight through. They've been staying here for a commissioner call every day, not only starting at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, but staying for a commissioner call at 4:30 to 5:30 every day. Another hour's worth of discussion after that of what's changed that we have to be ready for the next day. So I would concur with Brent, with the entire staff, and especially our administrative team, but also our essential pieces that have had to stay open and be flexible and turn that on. When not everybody has to be here having student contact, our daycare workers are here providing daycare for those essential Tier 1 and Tier 2 workers. As well as our food service staff. They've been coming in every day and putting together the meals. We started out where they were available to be picked up. We then brought our bus drivers in and we started delivering them to their homes in various locations. So our entire staff has really stepped up and done a tremendous job.
And there are no words except gratitude and thank you to everybody within the district.
It's overwhelming, just amazing.
I am not one to think that I take a lot of things for granted. I'll be the first to admit that I think there are times we take what we have for granted. And everybody rises during times like this. And it's too bad it takes something like this, but
it's impressive.
Never forgotten. It is just so appreciated. And Brent, thank you. You're one of the admin, and you were
Happy to be
included
part of
also. And just everybody within the district that's working their tails off. So, and let's give a round of applause. Okay.
As we move on to the agenda, Brent is going to take the next two items
Right.
as well.
Okay.
Goodbye.
So that's the Mustang Spirit recognition for now. Anybody else have anything further to add or any other Mustang Spirit recognition? It's pretty all inclusive.
Yeah,
If you think of something later.
It's just as emotionally overwhelming to see everybody, the delivering of food, the care that's put in for the kids that are coming in, it's heartwarming and overwhelming and.
Thank you. I was going to say it's hard.
Yeah.
That's all you
It's
can
just-
say.
It's amazing.
I'm gonna say from Kelly, our bus driver, calling in, and I know everybody that hasn't got that, to teachers sending out, hey, we wanna, have this, to other, staff when we're looking around that have been there, that, up until now, we have seen at different places, and they're all working towards the best for our kids and for this. It is truly amazing, so, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brent. So, moving on and shifting a little bit, next item, the next two items actually are updates on trips abroad, the travel club to Greece and the upcoming German club trip. And Mr. Nelson is going to be updating us for Marcia Mliner, the travel club advisor, and also Amanda Stenberg, German teacher. So, Brent?
Perfect. Can I read a statement that they put together?
Sure.
All right, can I do German first?
Okay, German
So
first.
this is a message from Ms. Stenberg.
Mm-hmm.
A group decision was made between Mora, Hinckley, and Pine City, German departments, to accept the CETA Tours offer to postpone our pending German trip from June of 2020 to the summer of 2021. Families have been given the option to either cancel their trip entirely or continue with the group travel plans of summer 2021. Hopefully it will be safe travel by then.
Good, sounds reasonable. Any thoughts on that? Everybody got that?
So it was a choice the parents had, correct? Thank you.
All right, and then
The
Greece.
second one is Ms. Mliner. Effective Thursday, March 12th, 2020, EF Tours effectively postponed all trips departing in March or April. As of today, EF has brought home all trips and students that were on tour both internationally and domestically. As for our trip in particular, nothing has been decided at this time. I have asked my travelers to give me this week to get my day job organized so that all my attention can be put into preparing a meaningful online curriculum. What this means is no decision has been made as to what will happen to our Greece trip. EF is offering each traveler a travel voucher that is worth the entire cost of their trip to be used by September 30th, 2022. We will have a variety of options. As to those options and decisions, I will keep you up to date. If you're curious what EF's response is to the question, what happens next, I have attached their online response below. We will have options. Unfortunately, it may not be realistic for our entire group to travel to Greece together. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And it's unfortunate.
Such a bummer.
Well, it is that this foreign travel has been banned. Basically, we're not able to go. And so it's fantastic that these companies have both come up and adjusted their regular plans, their regular policies, as well as I know our foreign exchange students are having to return to their homes through this process as well. So this whole thing is a worldwide reaction and as it's getting here, it's been other places first. And that's what started that reduction of travel and the return. When we first started asking, what are we gonna do with these trips that are upcoming? Their initial response, their first response was, we don't have the time to talk about that right now because we have multiple trips over there and we need to figure out how to get them back as soon as possible. And so then they were able then to take a look at their policies and report back to us. So that's where we're at with that piece.
All right. We'll move on. First open forum. And I don't have any requests at this time for anybody to address the board. So assuming that's still the case, we will move on in the agenda to.
Karen, just so the general public that are live streaming in understand what and how we're doing that, would you just cover just briefly what that process is?
So open forum requests are preferred or are encouraged ahead of the point on the agenda at which it would take place. And so there are cards with all the information as you come into the board meeting, that you can complete and submit, and then we will gladly hear any comment that you wish to make before the board during open forum time. So
Yeah, and
there will be
under this specific meeting, we've changed that process a little bit.
Okay.
So would you cover the changes we've made with the live stream across the
Oh,
hallway?
so the open forum part?
Yeah, so that, would you like me to cover it?
Just go ahead. I was
Okay.
going to talk about them going, or being invited in at the point, but go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead and just keep
Okay.
going.
That the public has been invited into the meeting, and that they can be here. We do have some people that are seated across the hall during the, where the live stream is taking place. And if they wanted to come in and comment directly face-to-face with the board, we have that available. That they can do that simply by following the regular process that we've established. And all of that information that's usually here in the room is right outside the door here. And we do have 3 or 4 people across the hall watching the live stream, and if they would like the public comment, they could. And so we've made that opportunity available, but we have modified the process since we have a limit basically of 10 people in the room.
Okay, so if anybody still would like to make a request to speak during open forum, there's an opportunity before adjournment. So at that point, during second open forum on the agenda, just indicate to Kelly if that is something you'd like to do, and we'd be happy to have you come in person and make comment at that time. Thank you. All right, so consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda? Not. Entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Tammy to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion passes unanimously. All right, last month we had a presentation on physical education and moving to include that in the overall high school GPA. We will consider approving that tonight. Everybody have a copy of it or has had a chance to read through it in addition to Brenda's presentation last month. So is somebody prepared to make a motion, or Brenda?
Do you guys have any questions that you have after the information I presented?
How about if, would somebody make a motion so we could
I'll make a
discuss?
motion,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
We
Okay.
consider approving adding physical education grade inclusion in the overall high school GPA.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Scott, second by Bob, to approve adding physical education grade inclusion in the overall high school GPA, beginning with the 2021 school year with the entering 9th grade class. And questions, discussion, Brenda's here. Just thank you for such a thorough presentation as well as a draft of the curriculum, and yeah, I said it was so helpful.
Very helpful. I'm personally not in favor, but you're very persuasive. Educated and well put together, well laid out. I'm concerned about somebody that may be quite intelligent but not have that athletic ability, which was addressed in your presentation, but having that be a obstacle to finishing their academics where they would like them to finish, or where they'd like to finish. It's not that grappling, but it is a bit, because this board has been introduced that concept before and haven't gone in that direction. I don't know, I think discussion
Well,
is pretty good.
Right, like I said, this isn't our first time to be having this discussion or considering it, and like I said, just the scope or the way you have laid it out, along with the fact that, not that we want to do it because everybody else is, but you have to question it if we're pretty much the only ones, at least in this area, that aren't. It's worth having serious discussion and, yeah, I mean, I can support it and I don't have any specific questions about it. It's something that we're going to move to do or change from what we have been doing. So with that, we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion? Questions? Brenda, before we vote? All right, if not, all in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes. Okay, totally respect that.
I think it's gonna be one of those things that's gonna come back and we're gonna have another discussion about it, and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think this is
I
good
will
to
have
move
to
forward.
say that NDE did contact me, cause I had asked them some questions, and they had said how proud we were, that how proud they are, that we are addressing this, and that we're looking at it, and considering physical education standards as a curriculum and as an equity piece. So I will have to say that they wanted me to report back to them, and so I will, and, they said they were really proud of Mora Public Schools for addressing this, so.
Thank you for all you put in.
Sure, thank you, Brenda.
It's really difficult to not, you did a great job, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so the motion passes with, majority voting. Thank you. Alright, next we have approval of the Education Minnesota Mora Education Support Personnel Agreement for 2019-21. And you received a copy of the agreement. This, I think, a fairly smooth process. It's a large group, it's a diverse group. Any of the other areas on the committee would like to comment? Otherwise, a motion to approve that is in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the ESP, agreement for 2019-2021.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Tammy, second by Bob Jensen. Any other comments, any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Okay, next is consideration of the preliminary budget and assumptions for fiscal year oh, sorry, what's that? Craig, you were right on the mark on our board. Sorry, item 11, consider approval of superintendent contract for Daniel Voce for 2020-23. And I know Dan is in attendance tonight, so it's certainly invited to come in at this point. Not necessary, but yes, we have offered a contract to Mr. Voce as the incoming superintendent and have a copy of the contract in your packet. And so would move for approval of that.
So moved.
I'll second.
Is that Bob or Scott?
Yeah.
Scott, motion by Scott, second by Ethan. Any further discussion?
Dan had said earlier, yeah, he was gonna pop in at this time, but I don't know if he changed his mind. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Just if there had been any questions or anything, so, but,
I would like to comment.
Yeah.
Terry and Scott
yeah.
did a fantastic job. I just am not in agreement with the salary, and that's fine. You're fine. Come on, come on.
I did, fine.
I don't have a problem saying it in front of your face. And, I think he's a great candidate, and I look forward to him working here. I just couldn't support his salary through the negotiation process. I could just briefly tell you that, like, it's in line with Foley, in my mind. It's almost in line with Foley, what was offered. And then Malacca has, they're about 300 students more than us, Foley is. Mille Lacs is about 200 students more than us. And so, and then Pine City, who we didn't have numbers for as part of this negotiation till Monday, I think we got them. Pine City's is significantly less, and we're talking very few students difference between Pine City and us. There's only, I think, 10 students different in count. Mille Lacs is 200, Foley's 300. And Pine City's superintendent this year is making 130,000, 132,000 for next year's contract, and 134,000 for the third year contract. And we just didn't have those numbers, during the negotiation process. And I supported the numbers one step lower. And I just, like I told Scott over the phone numerous times, I just can't, budge any farther. So I just needed to say it in front of God and everyone that that's where I'm coming from. We're so close, and they did a great job.
One of our best, or one of the means to come to some kind of a resolution is to compare with districts surrounding us that are like size. That said, it's still never apples to apples. And the one thing that I will point out is just one example is, I believe Mille Lacs for one has a business manager. We do not. We rely on the superintendent a lot. Yes, we know what we have in Tammy. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She's still a finance manager rather than business manager. So all I'm saying is that it's just not totally apples to apples. It never will be. And I'm comfortable and very glad you're here.
I am too. So
And
you're not.
that is what we said, it's nice to be able to talk, we don't have to 100% be in agreement. There's the vast majority of this, oh yeah, we were, and the nice part is having you there too, we all were saying, how do we do this? And having a first contract is a whole lot tougher, on this side and this side, than one that's already in place, cause it's easier to tweak than to come in from a start. But that is a strength of a board to be able to say, yep, Bobby and I talked, I totally respect where he's at, he respects where I'm, okay, we have.
I said, Scott, there's two of you, move forward.
Yeah. And,
Democratic here.
yeah.
Well,
So-
and respectful too, I mean, that's the thing, it's.
I was
just
stuck.
because we don't
Yeah.
always agree, doesn't mean we're not gonna make progress and just
Yeah.
moving forward, so.
If he only had a year or two, I could have went there. Sorry.
Sounds like he's a good negotiator.
Oh, yeah, extremely.
I don't know about that.
Well, I was gonna say the same thing, you must be a good negotiator, and as your top candidate. Dan, you got it done in basically a meeting and a couple of emails, I think. I spent 3 weeks negotiating, so it's not uncommon for Mora to have a conservative board, just so you remember that for the future. I think one of the most important things to be aware of is that you're their number one candidate, and they're willing to work with you to show you they want you to be here. And I think, Bob, as we look at contracts, we also have to not just look at one component, and usually the salary is a big one, and then some benefits, but the total contract. And so as you look at total contract wise, you hire the employee that you want at something that you're all comfortable with. And I think Dan is gonna do some great things, for the district for the future. And so, you always have that option for the future when you get that experience, whether you're willing to go more or not, and that just plays out.
And just so you know, I'm the one who pushed these guys to leave the third year open.
Yeah.
So that we could go there.
That is true. That was a
So
great-
that's, give me some credit a little bit.
That's
Well, yeah, no, I would just add that, I respect your guys' decision and, if you're not having important conversations between each other, then you wouldn't be doing your job. So, you've been dedicated, or committed to me now, and, I'm definitely gonna be committed to the Mora Public Schools, and work closely with all of you to provide the best opportunities that we can for our students and our community. And I know Superintendent Schultz has been committed for a long time here and has done outstanding work, so I'll have some big shoes to fill, but I intend to work extremely hard to try to help you and the rest of the school teams to move forward and try to reach all our goals for our community. So I just also wanted to say how impressed I was from the get-go of the interview process and all the people that I met. It's definitely, you can see the commitment that, all the way from food service, just talking to the food service people, and what they've done here this week. You guys as a school board, taking the time to make sure that you get the candidates that you want, and you're building a strong team. I know I talked to Craig and he told me how fantastic the administrators were and how much they were committed to the school and the community, and so that's the kind of team I want to be part of.
We're happy to have you.
Welcome,
Yes,
thank you.
and I think you will find that there is amazing community support as well for the school in general, and look forward to you getting familiar with everything about Mora and Mora schools. So
I am too.
yes, well, we have a motion on the table, and we should probably vote on that before we do anything
You want me to
else.
step out? Okay.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes with majority votes. So welcome, Dan, and just wish you were able to be in the room for the meeting tonight,
That's
but
okay.
you will definitely not forget how you began your career.
Absolutely. It'll be memorable.
And that goes back to about 2 weeks ago already.
And as soon as I can get here and meet some people, I've got a couple people that have already offered tours around the town, and
Mhm.
I'll work with Superintendent Schultz to make sure that we have a smooth transition. And so I'm looking forward to COVID-19 being over and I can
Yes.
come up here and get to meet more people.
And we too are all here to work with you and make it a smooth transition, so.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move forward with consideration of the preliminary budget and assumptions for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Mr. Schultz.
Yes, I believe in your packet you have 3 sheets, and they should be in order of the spreadsheet piece that you're used to seeing. And we'll address that one, and then as you recall, the next sheet will give us a little more information about those numbers. Two sheets.
These are separate, not in the package.
That's in the packet.
Oh, okay. The spreadsheet is in your packet.
Yeah.
And then you should have 2 separate sheets.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't sure where they were located. I did meet with our finance committee and presented them with 3 different options. And so the total numbers here that we have that we're dealing with, well, maybe I should have gotten the updated one. I still have the old numbers. So I might have to ask you what some of these numbers are, because we did go with the option that was selected by the finance committee. As you recall, our budgetary process is made up of 3 budgets during the course of a fiscal year. And this is our preliminary budget, so it is our best guess based on the information that we have available at the time. And that information has been changing a lot more the past 10 days than it had prior to that. But again, this is our best guesstimate. And this is for next school year. This has to do specifically starting July 1st of 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. We will then, in June, as the legislative session closes, we'll have additional information by then, and we will make adjustments. We'll be bringing you another one in June for approval, and that's the one that will get submitted to the Department of Education and must be submitted prior to June 30th. Then in that same budget cycle, having to do with those 3, we'll be bringing I would recommend that Mr. Boche brings you a revised budget in about January, February, that has very specifically to do with the year. We'll be halfway through. We'll have known what the balance of the year. In the past, we've been able to hit those budgets within 1%, and most all accountants will tell you that if you hit it within 2%, that you're doing a very good job. And so again, these numbers will change come June 30. They'll look a little bit differently, but they'll be pretty close. Just in the past couple of weeks, we've made some changes. And as I said, if you have questions that I can't answer, we do have Tammy Hermanson, our finance manager, is also joining us via a Google Meet. And so if I need to ask Tammy, she's readily available through my assistant here, Amy, from our district office. If you take a look at the spreadsheet piece, do we have that available to pop up?
She's not, her face is being here. There she is.
But I mean, do we have the spreadsheet available to pop up?
I do not have that.
Okay.
You want a copy?
I think Tammy is probably working on getting her a digital copy as we're speaking so that she can put it up. And if not, I would recommend that, Tammy. We'll go ahead and get started because this is going to take some time to go through as we get down to the detail. So if you take a look at the top third of the page, you'll see our operating funds, our general fund, the 01 fund, transportation fund, our 03 fund, and the capital fund, our 05 fund. We have the revenue and expenditures listed there, as well as then on the far right side, the difference between of expense versus revenue. Total operating budget for next year, revenue side is $19,072,900 with a proposed expenditures of $19,340,476. Before I read that total in the right corner there, I want to go over the three individual funds first. Within our general fund, we're looking at about $17,147,000 and versus $17,336,000 in expenditures. In the transportation fund, we're looking at about $900,000 in revenue versus $1,037,000 in expenditures for a difference of $135,000 there. In the capital fund, we're looking at about $1,023,000 versus $966,000. Those are broken down to operating at $384,000 in revenue versus the $322,000 in expenditures. And in our LTFM, our long-term facility maintenance dollars, we're anticipating to take in $638,961 versus $644,028 going out. So the differences of our expense over revenue in the operating category is a minus $267,576, which is made up of the general fund at $188,000 in the red, transportation fund of $135,900 in the red, and a capital on Fund 5 of a positive $57,000. Those three make up the minus $267,576. Do you have any questions on that part? Now just remember, we'll go into some details on the other pages, but just as far as the spreadsheet itself goes. I know generally we try to bring you a balanced budget, and I'll explain a little bit more of the deficit as we get into the detail part. Okay, then within the food service, there we go. So if you want to zoom the camera over so that it can see the screen. In the food service fund, we're anticipating $760,000 in revenue and $770,000 in expenditures. In the community ed fund, we're anticipating $572,000 in revenue with $625,000 in expenditures. Those categories made up of the regular community service, the early childhood, family education, and the learning readiness categories, and you can see the breakdown of each of those. Then within the construction fund, there's $177,211 versus 0 in expenditures. And I would just remind you that that is the prepaid lease that we have with Wellia Health. We don't actually have revenue that we're anticipating within the construction fund. That is the prepaid lease.
And just to to expound on that, it's not money coming in, it's some money that's already been in and it's just coming off of the books. So
Yep,
it's
it's-
not, there's no exchange of anything, it's already done. This is just for paperwork.
Prepaid lease, and I should have expounded a little bit more on that. Prepaid lease, we have already taken the money and we have spent the money, and they prepaid the lease. And it's a 25-year lease, and so we'll be required, per GASB, to report that on the budget on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating on that.
Then within the debt service category, we're at revenue of $1,439,000, and expenditures of $1,410,000. That's to pay, the debt service pays both the board approved and the voter approved debt that we currently have. And if you recall, we're allowed to charge 5% over what our actual numbers are, and we cannot exceed 10% in our fund. And so if we get up to 10% over what our actual cost is, then we have to pay that back or basically deduct from next year how much we collect. So we are allowed to charge 5% over, but cannot exceed 10%. Which brings us to a total operating budget of $22,022,000 and $22,146,000 in expenditures. In the lower left-hand corner there, you'll see a number just below that spreadsheet. That's our ADMs of 1620. If you'll recall, all of our revenue, most of, not all, but most of our revenue is based on average daily membership, so the number of students that we have. We feel very good about this number, our average daily membership of 1620. As you've seen this year, throughout the course of the year, our numbers have not gone down, they've held very flat. Some years in the past, we've had numbers that reduce, and some years we have, in the 11 years I've been here, we've had 2 years where those numbers actually went up during the course of the year. But we've been flat for the past couple of years, and we feel very confident with those ADMs and how we based our revenue projections. Any questions on just the spreadsheet piece itself? Okay. I saw your scribbles on there, I thought that was my scribbles. Then on the next page, or the first page that you have that's extra there, will be the one that says regular school board meeting March 26, 2020 on the top. And these are our preliminary budget assumptions. This is a little bit more detail on what those numbers are made up of. And then the next page, I'm going to go into very specifics, and then we'll come back to the cover page again. So based on our preliminary budget assumptions for next year, we know currently that we have 126 graduating seniors, and we have 132 incoming 7th graders within that 1620 of our average daily membership. In supplies, we're anticipating in this budget, the high school has 137,150, and the elementary school has 104,797. Capital outlay, that has not been completed at this time because there's more requests than there are dollars available. But currently we have, within the high school, we have 13,500, and at the elementary we have 20,400. And if you have questions as I go through this, feel free to stop me as we go.
Just a clarification point. This 1,620 students, is that 1,620 students or ADM?
ADM.
Okay, so just for people listening, that, and I know that, just to clarify, but it isn't that we're basing this on 620 students. It's ADM, which is a little bit more.
It's 1,620 students, and it's actually, it's a little bit less than that. If you take a look at, in your packet, if you take a look at the actual numbers that show up there, there's a little bit of a difference because we base it around some additional funds that we take in for targeted services and a few other things. That comes out to about the same numbers in the gen ed money. So we base it around the 1620. If you take a look on that sheet though, you have to be very careful because those numbers don't translate perfectly to here.
Right.
The top half of that page is, I don't want to use butts and seats because that's what I keep hearing. No, it's actual students that are here. And I was going to say eyes because I like to see the whites of their eyes, but that would be twice as many. So actual numbers of students here versus what you're looking at the bottom of the page there, I believe is the weighted average daily membership. And our high school students are weighted at 1.2, and our elementary students are weighted at 1.0. So when you see these numbers of our incoming seventh graders actually being bigger than our outgoing seniors, there's that 1.2 multiplication factor that goes into that as well. So you have to be careful about all those categories and making sure that they line up.
Thank you.
So just for comparison, our actual enrollment, if I'm correct in reading, it is more accurately 1,596 right now.
Right, and it just gets
At this point
confusing
in the
people,
school year.
we're basing a budget of 1,620 when that's not what's outgoing.
We know this is based on a formula.
It's right, that's the confusing part, is it's based on a formula, not really that students, it's,
Yeah.
the formula is based on students.
And Tammy has access through the Department of Education, it's called the what if. And so we go through and we plug in those students into those actual pieces, and we plug in all the various things, and then we come up with a number that we're comfortable with. And 1620 is a number that we are very comfortable with.
And it's fairly conservative, right? Actually. Yeah, weird.
I'm kind of conservative, that's the way it goes.
I appreciate the clarification. Bob, it took me several years to figure that out. We're budgeting and I'm looking at the numbers and they're not matching,
Matching
but
up.
they don't have to.
It's school finance, we gotta make it as complicated as possible.
Thank you.
So then, existing technology loans that we have currently, $127,000. New technology loan that will be added in this budget is $60,875. Staff development is based around 1%. Technically, it's based around 2% of our gen ed money. But then the teaching staff has the opportunity or the option to vote 1% back or 50% of that 2%. And they have every year in the past. They haven't held that vote yet, but I'm sure that they will be willing to do the same for the upcoming year. Transportation. This, I forgot to adjust. Initially, when I proposed this to the Finance Committee, we had no bus or van in the dollar numbers. But those dollar numbers then were based on 157,000 instead of 267,000. One of the options given to the Finance Committee was, and that we include that van and bus, that our current fleet is one that our Transportation Department feels that we could go a year without a purchase, but the Finance Committee felt it's very important to continue that replacement process so we don't fall behind. So of the options that we gave them, that was one, and I forgot to update this particular sheet. So there is one bus and one van that's included in there for the upcoming year. Community education, there's a slight decrease in fund balance that we're proposing. In buildings and grounds, our projected revenue for next year is $639,000. And so we're projecting that in revenue, and we would be projecting to spend that as well. But each of those each of those facility maintenance projects would be taken before the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Anything over 25,000. In the past, they've given me basic leeway to move forward to 25,000. Anything over and above that would be taken before the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Based on the student numbers that we have, our elementary class sizes will look as presented there on the bottom of the sheet. Our kindergarten is based on 5 sections of 22 students, but as we've had in the past, if we exceed 110, that 5 sections at 22, we will add another section. So based on the numbers that we currently have within kindergarten and through 5th grade, and rolling those numbers forward, we are proposing that we will have 5 sections. In 1st grade, we'll have 5 sections, and there'll be a 21.6 per class size per classroom. 2nd grade would be 6 sections at 21.3. 3rd grade would be 5 sections of 21.0. 4th grade would be 5 sections at 22.4. 5th grade would be 5 sections of 25, and 6th grade would be 5 sections of 24.2. So do you have any questions on the generalized detail? How's that for an oxymoron? Okay, then on the next sheet, it breaks down and says that And basically, we're doing everything that we've been doing for this year, with the exception of these categories here. This does include a part-time health clerk at the high school, which would be 4 hours a day. We had, previously, we had 2 positions, or 1.5 position, we rolled into a 1. It's put a lot of stress on our staff this year, so we're proposing to put that back to 1.5. So it'd be adding a 4-hour health clerk. It does include a social worker at the high school. Initially, when the request came in, it was for halftime at the Alternative Learning Center, halftime at the high school. I wasn't sure about some of these staff ads, but under the current circumstances, the ads that we're proposing, I think, are very justified. And, you know, again, in the past, we've tried to deliver you a balanced budget, but we are going to be adding some staff in some very critical areas. And I think this is one of those very critical areas.
Yes.
We do have a replacement. Dave Sua is retiring this year, and we are bringing in hopefully a teacher that will be coming to us that will have a master's degree in her first year. And that specifically, the master's, we're putting that in as a master's step 1 because Dave teaches the upper level in the college and the schools classes. And so we're anticipating we're going to need that additional piece. We do have a replacement for Patty Eustace, who is retiring this year, and we will be rolling Tom Youngbloom from the elementary into that 7th grade math position. We are going to be cutting a 0.5 math interventionist. Previously, we had Mr. Youngbloom was coming up here as a halftime interventionist, and so we'll be cutting that position. And then we are adding, the union has agreed to pay 1 hour per day of the union president's salary to provide her time. That is not something that's a requirement, but it is something that if we're able to fit into the schedule, and so we are recommending that we do that. Mr. Nelson was able to fit that into Patty's schedule. At the elementary, it does include a 0.5 dean and a 0.5 math intervention. And as you see, it says a total increase of 0.5 because Mr. Youngbloom was a halftime interventionist at the elementary. The 0.5 for the dean, and if you look there, it also includes an additional 1.0 interventionist at the elementary school. That as we take a look at the time that we're missing out on our elementary students this year, I believe we need an additional intervention time at the elementary to help us catch up for the future.
Will that be math or other core? Is that math?
Brenda's right there. The additional interventionist at the elementary.
Would probably be a combination,
Okay.
but mostly literacy. We cut that
Okay.
position last year, and we're kind of adding it back in because we're missing it. We're missing that piece.
But it could be a combination or
Combination.
whatever it's.
Yep, there won't be any parameters on it.
So then we would still maintain the halftime math intervention. We would add this specifically for literacy, but it could be as needed. Again, this is a budget, and it doesn't specifically have to be that. We just have it in there as an intervention.
Placeholders there,
And then we have 2 positions. We have a special ed teacher and a classroom teacher at the elementary that are retiring, and we slated those in for BA step 3 positions. Some good news within our hockey numbers, they've increased, and so we haven't had a JV the past few years, and so we need to add back a JV position, and so this budget allows for the coaching, the travel, and the various components that would go with adding the JV hockey team. We did put in there a 1% increase in our dental insurance cost. And then based on information that Tammy had gotten concerning both our general liability insurance and our auto insurance, we did include a 9% increase. Now that could be more or less. They gave us a range of 5 to 15%. And so we tried to be a little bit on the lighter side of that. And again, that's strictly a number that we're putting in there. We don't have the renewal numbers. We will have those by June 30th, and so we'll have some much more solid numbers for you on that at that time. So, any questions on those positions that we're looking at either adding or decreasing? If not, then we'll go back to the front page.
The half dean,
Go ahead.
the half dean was for the high school or?
Elementary. And that.
You'd have to explain that a little further.
Okay, Brenda's right here as well.
Thank you. I mean, there's two principals down the building, I just don't know why you need half-time dean.
Well, so we have over 900 kids with preschool. That's a very large elementary school. We don't have any support beyond Randy and myself as far as attendance, truancy, student behavior. The social workers help out a lot, but then they can't then attend to the social emotional teaching and learning and working with families as closely as they need to. So having that person in there, especially during recess lunch, that middle part of the day, is gonna be really, really helpful. And then they can attend to some of those attendance issues, catching up with, I mean, we get stacks of bus referrals that, you know, don't necessarily get done every day, cause we only have so many minutes in a day. And then myself, I'm also attending to the curriculum part, and Randy attends to the communication as the part. So we have other district hats that we wear too. So all in all, there's just kind of a little bit of shortage of hands around there. So
If you would recall, you said we had two principals, we have 1.7. We changed the structure in this current year to have Brenda be 0.7 principal and 0.3 curriculum coordination. And I think she's probably finding that's taking a little more time than we anticipated.
it's really
Yeah,
two
I just
full-time
need to
principals and
verbalize.
I do the other outside, but you know, I
just needed to
yeah.
verbalize, so you did a wonderful
That,
job,
that's,
thank you.
that's what it's about, yeah, we just need a few more hands around there, so.
And maybe you might even be able to help out with the question that I had in that, was the halftime math interventionist cut explored extensively, or how we're going to transition those sixth graders into seventh grade, how is that particular group?
Are you
where
talking about
the
point five
halftime
at the high
cut
school?
at the high school?
Okay, Brent is right outside the door, I believe.
Yeah.
He is,
Probably the
yeah.
first thing.
He is.
But I know that it's involves seventh graders and, well, 132 seventh graders coming in. The halftime math interventionist
Cut
is being
at the high
reduced.
school.
We're talking about math teacher, not we were talking about Tom Youngbloom?
The position.
Yep, so can I tell you what equals, how that added up?
That's, I guess, what I'm looking for. yeah.
Perfect, so Michelle Austin, this year, she teaches 2 hours of Spanish.
Yes.
All year long.
Thank you.
Our registration numbers only need her next year to teach 1 hour.
Okay.
Patty Eustace is an instructional coach for 2 hours a day right now. Jess Larson is 1 hour a day. So
Gotcha.
within the math department, we have
It's
3
covered,
hours of
then,
instructional
really, yes.
coaching.
Yep.
Patty is retiring. Jess has taken 1 hour. So we're down an hour of instructional
So we're really
coaching.
not losing any math.
And actually, no.
hours. Yeah.
Actually, good. And then construction math, Brandon Austin teaches. That we won't be offering next year.
Okay.
So between those 3 things, that's the
Okay,
half-time position.
that adds up. And construction math is going why?
I think different reasons. One reason is right now Mr. Austin is doing it a little bit different. We ended up reducing in the industrial tech area, so we didn't have a teacher available to work one-on-one with him. So this year he is taking those people, those students, just in this classroom, and they're building some small houses to scale and things like that in his classroom. So they're not doing it the way they had done it in the past. The CTE department is really trying to focus on putting all their efforts into growing construction careers and welding. So just limited hours that way.
The math students that have been served in that class though will have an appropriate math class to get the required math credits that they need and support.
Yep, consumer stats is the class that most of those students, I assume, would end up taking. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Let me know if you have more questions.
An additional piece of information, and as you look at the front page there, as I said in the upper right-hand corner, that's the number that we're proposing. As you take that number all the way to the bottom, right, you see what that looks like. I think it's unfair to have that 177,000 prepaid lease in there, and so that kind of makes that number in the lower right-hand corner look different than what it really should. So the main thing I'd like you to focus then on is that top third of the page there. That minus 267,000. This year, we have an intentional spend down of the fund balance. There is some things that are specifically, we had talked about reducing the fund balance down. And so the projection that we have at the end of this year, and this is one of the times that Tammy is a little less conservative than I am. Usually she's more conservative than I am, but her numbers are much more accurate than my generalizations. And so she's projecting we'll be at about a 22% fund balance at the end of this year, about 150,000 per percentage point on the fund balance. And so at this 267,000, we're projecting we would come down on the fund balance again a little bit, but it will be less than 2%. That will leave you at the end of this budget cycle with still a 20% fund balance, and still maintain and do all of the things that we feel we should do for next year.
That 20% is where the board in the past has expected that we'd like to be, or that's the target. So.
In this past year, we were up to 126. So we're already spending down that.
Spend down about 4%.
Yeah, so just
And-
the conversations that we've had within the group, just to share that, is the spend down money is not annual money. It's not money that we're gonna be stuck paying for every time. It's one-time things. So we're intentionally getting that fund balance down to that 20%, which we were agreeing on, but not tying ourselves into continually spending. It's one-time spending.
Okay.
It's not a recurrence.
Thanks.
And the range that we tried to stay within was 18 to 22%. And so that's, and I'd like to remind you on the fund balance piece, a portion of that we spent down was the tennis courts. And so that, again, is one-time expenditures versus recurring costs. And so we really try and base the budget around that. When I started here, the fund balance was 15%. The board at that time had asked me to bring it up to 20%. I gave them a plan on how I would do that in the first 3 years that I was here. Didn't quite make it, but by the fourth year, we did get it up to the 20%. And then when we got to 22%, that's kind of when we talked about the range of 18 to 22. So the fund balance is still about, well, even at the end of next year's budget, and I'll look at this as my last budget that I'm gonna make, or grade, we'll still leave the district at 20% or just above.
That's to be applauded and
Yes, thank you.
respectable. Thank you. All right, so.
When will you know about, on the capital outlay, put in here not complete?
Capital.
Before you leave, you'll have me.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to leave in front of the new guy.
No, that's the June 30 budget that you get. We'll have that much more defined.
Thank you. That's it.
Forgotten everyone.
Yeah.
I'll call for a motion to approve the preliminary budget and assumptions.
So moved.
Second.
By Bob Woods, second by Tammy. Further discussion? Thank you, Craig. Thank you to the finance committee.
Thanks,
As
Dan.
always, very detailed.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Tammy, yes. Everybody involved. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item, we have an election coming up on May 12th. In light of circumstances beyond our control, something that we need to act on. We have the referendum set for May 12th. For all intents and purposes at this time, we're moving forward. But I think that in the matter of sensitivity and all things considered, we maybe should have a discussion in regard to that and all the circumstances surrounding it, so. Thinking about it, I sat down and actually had my little chart of pros and cons, and I've been, going back and forth in my own mind and have some thoughts. I guess to be upfront right away, it doesn't change anything in regard to the needs that we have and the reason for the referendum. No matter what, that will be there. Regarding the coronavirus crisis that we're in right now, it will pass. It's going to be behind us at some point. We just don't know when. And depending on who you listen to, I choose to listen to the economists. It sounds like there is reason for optimism in that we will be returning to life as we knew it for the most part. Not be the same, but again, we have to go on and not waver from what our plan is for facilities, and the need is still there and will be there, so.
I think everybody is totally on agreement. I mean, the needs aren't going away. It's that sense that be part of the health and safety immediate. Encouraging a congregation for a vote, or having people come into the building and be in contact with our staff. That's the part to me. Our needs aren't going away. We have to address them. It's first and foremost. In my opinion, I'm guessing it's not going to be able to happen. It seems like we're heading right into the peak of this. And I'm guessing the governor is gonna shut things down. But we don't know that.
We don't know that, and if that actually happens, then of course we just make a sharp left there, right, or do whatever we need to do, and that's fine. Then the decision is taken out of our hands. But if the governor doesn't order a postponement of
I believe
elections,
that
then
we all got the one, or several emails, but the one from MSBA and even the director of that, because we're not the only school district in this position holding it. And that, if I'm correct, is it 72 days before an election or 74 days? 74 days. We can't cancel it.
We're out the window.
Yeah, it's illegal. We can't, it's, per statute is there. And I also agree of saying that to me, it's much more along the lines of what would, the governor, if he shuts it down, okay, then we're all right again. There's nothing specific in statute, if I read that correctly, but the 74-day, part is our needs aren't going away. We can always look at what can we do to mitigate, how can we, try to make people as safe as, they can when we're voting and how we're voting. And I've taken different emails and phone calls from some say cancel, some say don't, and I'm sure everybody, has heard. I've got a couple other ideas that I came up with too, future things, but.
I'd encourage absentee voting for anybody that was concerned. I mean, that's an option where you.
That is just such a easy option, is to vote absentee.
Yes.
And essentially everybody has an equal opportunity to vote absentee.
Yes.
It's very user friendly, or very easy to obtain a ballot, and I think I know there could be other provisions made to mitigate the health issue as far as people actually coming to vote. And that would be to be determined, but there are ways to make it safe and keep everybody as safe as possible that's running the election.
Like drive-up voting I've heard of. I mean,
I know,
there are
right.
options out there
Heard
too.
of those.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of drive-up voting of, we have the concession trailer. It's nice, it's fully electric, it's fully everything. Is there something we can do with that out front? Even for, during early voting, okay, we make that, we put up signs, to try to come in there,
Very nice, Scott.
Thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and that's what I was just trying to,
These times you have to,
yeah,
but we also have to be, starting tomorrow,
yeah,
there's a lockdown.
yes.
And that's not the right wording for it,
No.
but that's the beginning
A stay
of
at
this,
home, yeah.
a stay at home. So
Correct.
are we listening to that?
Well,
And,
Hopefully we are.
yeah.
right.
We need to, we really honestly need to.
I,
And we need
this
to
is so
encourage our
scary
community to stay
to
home.
me, that, yeah, we definitely need to encourage that.
Yeah.
And to make it easier is great,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
the absentee voting would be the
Yes.
far more ideal of not having the interaction.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely, as long as.
Well, and as far as that absentee voting, that does start Friday, tomorrow. And Kelly has, as the clerk, has a number of ideas for you to help address some of those issues, and making accommodations that she's made even just within the building here, just within the past couple days since we got this notification. So
Yeah.
there's all kinds of additional ideas out there. Kelly, would you share just a little bit with their concerns about people that wouldn't want to come into the building?
Sure. So what typically it's been in the district office where folks would line up outside and actually come into the district office. Given the situation we currently have, we will have tables set out in the hallways alongside the district office, so I can have kind of a buffer and a protection for my election judges as well. My absentee election judges are, they're very good at what they do. They're very hard to come by, and I want to protect them the best I can, but they're also of some certain groups that are more susceptible. So I am probably going to lose some of my absentee election judges, but again, we're making arrangements to make sure that we have enough staff in place. So I need to keep it kind of close to the district office so they can be close to me. So that's one reason that I'm moving it out into the hallway. The hallway allows us to have space, plenty of space in between, since we don't have anybody in the buildings right now. So we're lucky in those respects. Everything that I have set up right now is padlocked on a cart. It's mobile. Amy has done a wonderful job, and she and Christine helping me set this up. So we can actually move most of the materials down to the ADA accessible back of the building by where the art room doors are. And so people could drive up there and we could have a setup there. It's much more accessible, but then again, it's away from the office, so I'm losing a little bit of those buffer zones. So we're gonna have to see, it's gonna be a little bit of trial and error to see what works best, but just know that the absentee voting will still be in the building, and we're gonna do our best to work with that. If I can ask one favor of the board members, or maybe anybody that's listening and watching, through this, it didn't give me a lot of time to think about getting masks and gloves and things like that for my election judges. So if anybody has any type of that kind of equipment that they would be willing to spare in whatever small amount that we could, if you guys could please consider bringing that in, as well as like any disinfecting materials, so we can make sure we wipe down the tables and things that people may be coming into using. So my goal is to protect them as much as I can, and still be able to have this open for folks to come in and vote. And mail is a very simple, easy way to do it. The absentee ballot applications are out on the website. I get emails every day for requests, and then we get them out every day, or as soon as I can get to all of them. By phone requests, they can turn them back by email. We can accept the digital signatures. They can turn them back by fax, or they can mail them back to us or drop them off. So it's a very simple process. Just do it early if you can.
And they can vote without ever coming into the buildings. And in the governor's order, election services is considered an essential service. And so just like our food service, food delivery, just like our daycare, election services falls into essential services as well. And so we can come up with, and people don't even have to come into the building for that. The current order that we have, remember, calls for through April 30th for our distance learning plan, and we're gonna go into a lot more detail about that later. The distance learning plan has been put in place till April 30th. Our teachers have been given the 1st and 4th to prepare their classrooms, because in the current order, students are coming back in on the 5th. And so, trying to make a decision on May 12th for an election puts you into that time frame when technically, based on the information we have available today.
Outside the window.
Yeah.
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 And so we're at May 12th with that, so that's something to take into account as you think about this as well. I think another thing that to take into account is that if you decide to go on and continue on, that gives you a lot more flexibility than if you decide to cancel. If you decide to cancel, then you have to decide what you're going to do here. I too, just like many of you, have had that spectrum. You need to cancel. The sky is falling, the world's coming to an end. All the way over to a parent that called me the first day that I got back that said, "You are running the referendum, aren't you?" And I said, "I don't know. That'll be a board decision. It'll be discussed at the board meeting." And they said, "Well, if you want me to bring my kid back to your high school, I need to know that you have a safe building. I need to know that you have ventilation and you have exchange and you have wider hallways or an answer for passing time. I need to know that you have a modern building that is where the bathroom doors are no longer on there. There's not this continuous, this building was built in the majority in 1936 and 1950, and that's not based around the ventilation and all of the things." And this parent told me, and this exemplifies this more than anything else I've ever seen, the need for a modern building. So whether you decide to fix this one or to build a new one, the public is going to have an expectation, and you have an obligation to the students to provide that. And so whichever way you decide to go, I think the most flexibility is if you decide to move forward with this, and then if it does get postponed or whatever, at least you haven't taken it off the table. You still have the opportunity to make that decision at a later date. And then let's move forward and say that we're able to have it on the 12th, and it passes. Then you have to make a decision after that, what you're going to do. You still have the option of delaying or moving forward, and you'll have much more information at that time than you have today. I don't think we should be reacting in the sky is falling, the world's coming to an end. We do know, based on the history that we've seen with some of these other countries, this is gonna be a 1, 2, 3 month process. And we're gonna go through, as we go through the process, but the needs for the building aren't going away. The students are coming back, whether it's on May 5th or if it's on May 15th, or it's not until the day after Labor Day in the fall. You know they're coming back. And so you, as a board, have to make that decision of what you're going to do and how you're gonna move forward. I think we have to be sensitive to the business owners. We have to be sensitive to the taxpayers, but we also have to be sensitive to the students and the parents that trust us to send their kids here as well.
This really underscores the need that we're even having this conversation. If it wasn't a need, we would just pull it. We're well beyond
Right.
need. I mean, this was a need 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago when it was started. We've kicked the can down the road, and we've said that too many times, that we're at the end of the road with this building, with the safety of this building. It's not a matter of not having that need, or trying to show that the need is not as great as we had presented it, but we're trying to be sensitive and realize that this is a unprecedented time in our history.
Another thing to put in perspective as we look at this, as our businesses are affected, as our workforce here in the county is affected, as we move forward. If we're successful on May 12th, the first taxes collected wouldn't be until May of 2021. So that's a year from May before that those taxes would be due. So it's not that by passing it on May 12th, If you sell the bonds a few months later, the taxes aren't going to be collected until May of '21.
And I mean, the beauty of living in Minnesota during this is that the state of Minnesota had a $2 billion surplus. Now, we were all hoping that that would be put into a bunch of other things that would benefit our district, but I hope it's gonna go back into the hands of our business owners, and that's by all accounts what they're intending to do to get the economy going again. So unlike other states that are in deficits, we had a buffer.
Good place.
Nice point. As you pointed out, we're beyond having a lot of options.
Mhm.
So it's just not.
It stinks to have our backs against the wall
Yeah.
like this, cause this is a scary time, but our backs are against the wall.
So, what are we hearing? Bob, you been a little quiet? Any thoughts?
Scott, you said 74 days. That's way past.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
we're well
couldn't-
under the 70.
We couldn't do it.
Per statute, we can't.
We can't.
It would be
So,
breaking.
that's why I'm
The law.
so
We would have
surprised.
to request a special
Right,
waiver
that's
of permission.
why I-
to
There would be a
do it.
legality.
Right.
behind it.
Yeah.
So
Which probably-
that's why I'm quiet.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty black and white with the law, so.
Yeah. And I'm right.
Sorry.
To again say, yep, we could potentially request, we could, but then it goes back to, these are still needs, here's what we have. Would we
And-
have an answer by that time? Probably not. 'cause if
All we'd
anything-
be requesting is, can we delay this 2 months?
Yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
When's the
it's
next
not like
time?
we would be
Last
saying,
one.
can we do it in a year or two, or
Yeah.
it would be,
Yeah.
could we delay this 2 months until things open?
Yeah.
And who knows? what
Yeah,
this is
and
gonna
it's,
be.
and we're still back to the same, of who knows, if it's not
Right.
open now, will it be open then? And obviously, and if the Governor Wall says, this is it, okay, then it's it. I'm fully agreeing with Bobby saying that we're within the 74 days,
I think if it would have been before that,
yeah.
It would
we
be
were
an
here,
entirely different
I would
conversation.
be probably talking quite loudly. So I don't think we got an option, so we're just gonna move forward.
And I do believe the governor has made some really good, succinct moves.
Yes.
If this is gonna put the general public at risk, the governor is going to, is gonna
He's gonna
do
stop it,
something, he's
yeah.
gonna stop it, he's gonna delay it.
There
And-
were at least 4 other districts, maybe there were 5 other ones that are running on the 12th, and all except for one are continuing forward
moving
with
forward.
theirs. And so we're not in this alone.
No, and the one was not, looked like it was more athletic kind of things.
They're not in the same position.
It's not
Right.
right.
It's,
But I guess
So
my
yeah, I
point
took it too,
is
there was no
that
comparison.
they'll be evaluating
Yeah.
on a statewide
Yeah.
Right.
basis, and we'll do whatever we need to do.
I just appreciate that the conversation is happening, because we all know the importance of staying at home right now, and the efforts that are being put forth to make that happen.
And you can vote from home.
And,
It
but,
was very
yeah,
clear to
that's
me.
what I was going to just
So,
add, beginning
Just
tomorrow, you
request
can
it.
still vote, and not even have to
Vote.
leave home.
And I think that one of the things, us as a board of saying, we as a board can spend funds. What can we do to assist and make this as safe as possible? What can we do? That is a good, point of whether it's, gloves or plexiglass barrier, something of saying, yeah, there might be additional costs. We understand that. What can we do to keep people safe while they're doing this? It might be different staff or additional staff, because we might need different ones. That's a cost. We understand that, because the safety is the utmost, concern. Nobody here wants to put anybody at risk or at greater risk to put it out there, but I think there's ways that we can get that done.
Let's do it
Yeah.
electronic, in the mail,
Yeah,
and
yes.
anything else.
Yes.
So, we'll move forward for now? Until we're.
Like-
Well, I
Otherwise-
truly, like you guys were saying, legally, we're in this, we're bound. But it does, because of the times we're in, we need to have the conversation, we needed to have the discussion about it.
And thanks for putting this on the agenda,
Yeah.
because I wasn't even sure about the 74
Yeah.
days. So it's good that the public
Yeah.
now knows we don't really have an option. Period, we don't have an option.
We could break the law.
Yeah, we could break the law, but we're not gonna.
No.
Yeah, it's
a no-win,
It
is
so
and
to
not.
speak, but,
And the
yeah.
and just like we've said, the governor could change the law.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
governor can override that,
Yep.
and I think he has been making moves in our health interest.
Yeah.
that's where I'm putting my trust in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's proven that they continue to monitor very closely, and that's what his updates are based on, his data and
Yeah.
best practice at that time, and when that happens, if it happens, then we'll do
Just like
something.
everybody else's lives have been turned upside down with this, I mean, business to retires to everybody. There is going to be some compensation maybe if it doesn't take place from the state to help alleviate that. There's gonna be workarounds, work and fixes for these things that we're going through right now.
I've been notified that we all need to speak up louder and stuff, just like we were at the interviews, so if we could speak up, the crowd, the people out there would appreciate that. Thank you.
Should we start
Thanks.
over?
No. I just got the word.
Kelly was
You're
trying,
right.
Kelly was trying to get out there, but I didn't find
You
good
can't
time
hear us there.
to
We're
come in.
Yeah. You're at a bad angle, so that's why.
We're in discussion, and I'm sorry, I wasn't being observant either, so apologies to the audience, and we'll do better. Alright, so, given what we know, we'll move forward and we will act as we need to if there are orders or further direction from
And I assume, Kelly, you get,
MDH or the governor.
you get updates from your position as election judge on these things, right? And from the state, are they giving you any directions?
Through MSBA, we have received a bit of information and direction, which is very actually helpful because that's a common connection really amongst all the school districts that are running it, because we're in a very really particular situation because we only have 5 days a year that we can have an election like this to even
Right.
begin with. So to fall in this time frame where it affects 2 out of the 5, I mean, that's not big, that's makes it really tough on all of us too. So we do have good support there. So, and with the county auditor's office, she's been wonderful working with us. So just we got good supports. Thank you.
And to be clear, Bobby, like I said, with the 74 days, we don't have the option to say, oh, we can just postpone it and then we're all good. That's not an option. Either we can't cancel, we can't postpone.
No, if-
We can't, I mean, it's, we have
if
a
we
date
broke the
specific.
law
Yeah,
and said, nope, we're not doing it, we'd have to figure out the
Yeah.
legalities of it, and then we'd have to start all over. It's
Yeah,
not
so
as simple
totally
as.
separate, yeah.
Right.
so it is not an option to just say, oh, if, we can sit here and postpone it and make our own rules. It's not our own rules. It is good here, yeah, MSBA, again, we're not in this alone. We're not creating this up. We are,
We're
for
having
everybody,
to
this is a
react
first.
just like everybody
But-
else is, right
Yeah.
now, we're
Yeah.
all in it together. Alright, any further discussion?
Yeah.
And we'll see. Alright, brings us to reports. Board reports, meetings. Had a few.
Wait, are we gonna, Brenda was gonna give us,
Yeah, that's coming.
okay.
Coming in under her report, yes.
Oh,
thank you.
gotcha, okay.
So board member meetings first, any? If not, we'll continue moving. We don't have a student board member here tonight, so I will assume we don't have a report from her, them either. Activities, community ed.
And
what's
in
our
your
package?
board packets, you most likely noticed that there isn't a report specifically from like a regular board packet. As I had said earlier, that this has been an unbelievable rat race timeframe for us. And so on Monday, as we talked administratively, was it more important for you to hear about what we did back when before the world changed? Or is it more important for you to hear what we're going to do to move forward? And so we decided administratively that we would be willing to move forward and present that as a unified board report from the principals, the superintendent, curriculum coordinator, and Brenda. Actually, at the teleconference we had right after on March 15th, Brenda volunteered to be the coordinator for the distance learning plan as well. And so she's done a lot of the coordination of this. But before we get to that, if you do have specific questions, as I had mentioned previously, buildings and grounds and athletic director, the building principals are all available if you have a question for them, either now or if you'd like to jump into the distance learning plan. We can take questions after that portion's over. So
We can move right into the distance learning plan.
Okay, so I put, I put this in front of you, and this is the detailed plan that has a lot of the narrative. We'll be putting this on the website. We have to post this by tomorrow, and Tim and Shane, they were working on it today, getting it up. And then I just put together some slides with kind of a framework and less words for you to go over. So this first slide, the main elements that we have to have in the distance learning plan and we have to address, how are we going to instruct kids at home? This is not e-learning. E-learning was meant for weather-related closures, short-term instruction. We have a beautiful plan that we can still do next year. But for this year, we had to come up with that extended learning that's gonna take place at home with daily interaction with a teacher and then the materials at home. Childcare, we have to provide childcare, and later on, I'll go over the specifics of that. Nutrition, we have to feed kids every day, every student contact day on our calendar. And then staff, we have to account for how we're going to maintain employing them because they will be earning pay as we go. And then the whole plan has to address many layers of equity, making sure that everyone's taken care of and their needs are thought of. So when we thought about all these elements, just flexible, 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 that's the word that kept coming up. And so flexible for students, ensuring students have flexibility in their daily schedule. We know that some older students are gonna be taking care of younger siblings. We know that some students will have to wait for mom and dad to get home from work to help them. We know that some students won't have that parent at home in the morning, so they might have to do their work later on in the day. There's a lot of elements with students that we had to look at. And then looking at distance learning from that perspective of the student experience at home. And we know home means a lot of different things to a lot of families. Then flexible for families, so making sure families have that flexibility to work around their schedules and the many different circumstances that come with every single family. And then communicating with families in multiple ways. Flexible for staff, giving teachers options and flexibility in delivery. If I am a high school teacher and a lot of my students are doing other things for their families during the day, then if I say class is at 10, you have to log in, we're gonna have a class meeting, and that student's taking care of their siblings, that kind of puts them at an inequitable place. So we don't wanna do that. So giving teachers the flexibility to be able to hold class at 5, when usually it's at 9 here in the building, if most of the students, that's what their needs are. And then allowing for flexible distance learning schedules according to those needs of the students and families. Teachers may have to split up their day. They may have to do some in the morning, some in the afternoon, some at night, depending on when students are available, depending on when parents are available. So their 7.5 or 8 hour day isn't gonna look like traditional building hours, just so that we're all aware of that. So the instruction part of this, students interact daily with materials and teachers. That is one of the requirements of the distance learning plan. We decided, that second bullet, that we would look at instruction from a weekly standpoint. So, an assignment would be made, and maybe on Monday they might do a piece of the assignment on Tuesday, and then have it due at the end of the week. And focus really on that critical contents and just really the standards you haven't covered yet. Those priority things that kids still need to learn in this last 9 weeks, just focusing in on those, no fluff. We don't have time for that right now. Recommended guidelines for maximum student commitments on each instructional day. We looked at other models, which we couldn't find a whole lot out there, imagine that. There's not a whole lot of guidance out there, but there were some states who had some pretty good information up, so we kind of looked at the best of the best and came up with some guidelines for our teachers. And then collection of work is going to be a little different. It's not recommended that we actually take paper versions back from families at this point. It would have to sit for a long time before they could guarantee that the germs and such. So what does that look like? Well, we'll have to come up with solutions for that. But work, assessment, and grading, that'll be dependent on what the teacher has available, what the kids have available, and the nature of the assignment. And then grading is quite a gray area right now. On our superintendent calls, that's a question. Every district's asking that same question right now. What does grading look like? We don't have an answer right now, but we are working on that, just to let you guys know. And then instruction should be flexible. There's gonna just be a whole lot of unique circumstances, and just making sure that we don't set families in a box, because we know that they don't fit in a box. So. Special education, so we will of course continue with that. That is a federal law, but what they're going to be doing is looking at IEPs and then amending them to have what they're calling IDLP, so Individual Distance Learning Plan. So they're going to put an addendum onto each IEP, so that's what our special ed teachers have been working on. They have to get parent consent, and that over the phone's okay with our current circumstances, and then make sure teachers know what those new modifications are, accommodations, and then special ed teachers will help do that instruction during our distance learning. And then really looking at a balance of that core and supplemental work. We don't want special ed students to have to do all their core work and then also do all the supplemental work for special education. That would kind of defeat our purpose. So they have to work together to get that balance. And then each day, Jenny Berry is gonna have a Google Hangout with all the special ed teachers at 9 a.m. So attendance is a question. It's been on our call a few times. They have given some guidance. Initially what we came up with and then their guidance was a good match, so we were real happy with that. So if students complete their workly assignment, they will have attended the full week at school. The teachers will plan what a week looks like for that student, and then if they finish that, they will have thought that they attended to their work for that week. Is kind of how we're changing that mindset of how we're looking at that. Assessing, how do we know if they finished? So receiving work back just isn't recommended at this time. So a picture, the kid can take a picture with their phone. Many different ways they can do that. We can ask parents can report to us. And other interactions with student work, we can do Google Meets and have kids show us a project. So however it works for the teachers and the family is how they're gonna assess that piece. And then during a week, if students aren't participating, then that next Monday, so March 30th through April 3rd, those are 5 days of instruction. On April 6th, actually Lane has it set up so that's 7 a.m. on April 6th, the teachers will get a Google form to take student attendance. What we will do is we will report kids that we could not find them, they weren't participating, their parents weren't answering, somehow they disappeared. And what we'll do is we'll take that form and report it to either Sarah, Stacy, or Sam. So it'll go to one of the counselors or one of the social workers. And it's just a simple form like this. And if you scroll down, it just has the teacher information, what building, the students, the grades, and then for high school, what hour. So we'll be able to get that into a spreadsheet and track that and give it to the right people. And then we also have to account for staff attendance, certified staff. So certified staff will also complete a Google form by 3 p.m. each contracted day. Whether they're working in the morning or working in the evening, we thought 3 p.m. was kind of a medium in there. So they'll, again, Lane has this set up for 7 a.m. each contracted day. And from 7 to 3, they just are to fill this out. It's a simple timestamp with their name. It'll go to a spreadsheet, so we'll just account for staff attendance that way. And that is also a piece of what we have to account for. So, and then the next, let's see, not attendance. We just did that. Next slide. Oh, internet access. Okay, great. So what we did was, in the high school, they surveyed students that were here on that Monday. We were missing about 150 students at the high school, so not all kids received that survey. We got a lot of good information from that. From that, we learned about 6% of our high school students self-identified not having internet at home, which was helpful to know. And we could know which students they were because their names were attached to that. Sarah Rosso also sent out a family needs survey. We got a lot of good information back from that about internet accessibility and devices at home, so we used that. But even with those 2 surveys, we were missing gaps.
Were those mailed out or?
Nope, through Synergy emailed to parents and then students.
So if they don't have internet?
So we got as much as we could through those 2 surveys. And what we did was we merged all that along with all Jody Case, we love her, don't we? She did all this work. She merged all that information along with current existing student rosters.
She got them all.
Well, yeah.
Perfect.
So
That's all I need to know.
we looked at all the missing data, and then Paris started calling all the families and just yes or no, do you have internet access? Do you have devices at home? So we were able to get that information and then get devices to those families too, which was really helpful. So now paper copies of weekly work will go home to any kids K through 12 who don't have that access at home. High school teachers, you know, it's double work for them, but they really worked hard to make sure that anything they're presenting digitally is also in a paper format, and all that went home this week for the high school kids as well as the elementary kids. And then paraprofessionals, my gosh, they worked so hard this week. And they organized all of that classroom work, got it bagged, and got it to the families. So pretty impressive what we accomplished. Childcare is a piece that we have to address. The district has to provide childcare for district enrolled students aged 12 years and under.
5 to 12.
5 to 12, right.
The district, a lot of people see that and they don't read the first part of the district enrolled.
District enrolled, yeah, which basically starts in
Can't drop
kindergarten.
out.
No, you cannot. So, and then children of tier 1, that's a mandatory. You have to have children of tier 1. We chose to also include tier 2 essential community workers. We basically have, today we had 12 kids. We've had about 11 every day. So.
We initially had around 20 sign up, and we got 15 to start with, and we kind of dwindled down. And the tier 1 includes healthcare workers, emergency responders, police, corrections, fire, those emergency type services. Tier 2 is the stuff that we want to make sure the lights stay on. We want to make sure the water keeps running. We want to make sure there's wastewater. Construction has been included in essential workers. Educators have been included in essential workers. So in that tier 2 piece, that was an optional one, and that was a district decision, then that we would provide daycare for the tier 2 workers as well, because we wanna do what we can to make sure that people that have to go to work, cause our own teachers are saying, how am I supposed to teach all day? And I've got 3 kids and I'm supposed to get all this done, and I don't teach at this grade level, and so we have those issues among our own staff, so we're very sensitive to that as well as we work our way through this process.
Does any instruction take place in this daycare?
Really good question.
Sorry, just curious.
So we're having those conversations. We're going to have to, I believe, do that, but the great thing is our paraprofessionals are the ones running the daycare, and they're, you know, fully capable of doing that.
As equipped as
Anybody, yeah.
Right.
And so we're thinking about our computer lab, you know, could we open that up? Cause now, they have the whole school.
Right.
And,
you
like,
can
literally
literally
run around
I can
and
go
ball
see,
so
there you
much.
go.
Yeah, don't do that.
You never know.
And then, we think we might open up the media center for more of that classroom. We have those tables and stuff in there, so, they could do their homework or their work in there. So, yeah, and we have plenty of staff to help the kids, so, yeah, I think that might start on Monday.
And as we work our way through that process, we also have guidelines. We can't have more than 10 people per room. They're to be split up by grades and try and keep things similar. Here, we have a few, one of the ones on our superintendent's call that phoned in for the Rochester School District. They're running 270 to 300 kids a day, and they're having to follow those guidelines, and they're not able to come up with enough staff that are willing to do it right now. So we're very fortunate in that means.
And today I went down to they were in the big new gym, and you know, they had kids over at that corner and they were watching a movie, and then they had kids over here playing house with Legos and everything, and then, you know, these kids were playing games on a table over there, so they're splitting them up too, so they're not bunched together, which is good.
And this is daycare, it's not instruction.
Right.
Daycare.
Yeah.
So the kids must be healthy to attend, and this has been added since the first draft. So we're taking the temperature of the kids when they come. They have to have 100.
0.4.
Yeah.
Or less.
Well, we go by 100 because that is what our threshold was before, and so Ann decided to continue with what our district's threshold was.
By Monday, it'll be 100.4, as
Okay.
per the Department of Health.
All right, there you go, Mr. Schultz said. And then, if they have any signs of not feeling well, if there's any cough or runny noses, then parents have to come and get their kids, they cannot stay. And that's all from the Department of Health. So it's at the elementary, it's 6:30 to 6, just like we had Mustang Care.
So this isn't just the school day, 8 to 3.
Yeah.
We're running this from 6:30 in the morning till 6 at night.
11.5 hours. And then they get breakfast at 7:45 and lunch at 11. There's no charge. And paraprofessionals are staffing it. We also have Becky helping out every other day in the morning. She's continued. And then Mr. Tip is doing the other mornings, which of course the kids love Mr. Tip, right? So yeah, it's working out quite well. So nutrition, we have to serve meals. Meals must be made available to students who need them, no matter their resources. So we don't ask. If you're free and reduced, if you're not, that doesn't matter. We began food service the very next day. So we were at school Monday, we began food service on Tuesday. Barbara and her staff, I mean, boy, talk about circling the wagons, coming up with a plan and then executing it. Really incredible what they've been able to accomplish. At first,
We're on our 7th day of planning, and so we've been able to build this, which has been just phenomenal in 7 days. And you're seeing acronyms that we had never heard of before.
Yeah.
This is what we need in education, is more acronyms. For food service, they had to be up and ready to go the next day, and that was truly amazing that they stepped in and stepped up and have grown that now to what they have. So that has been phenomenal.
daycare as well. We started that Tuesday morning, so both those things, we had to get them going. So like Brent said earlier, we have about 400 students now, and aged 0 to 18, the summer food program takes and accounts kids from 0 to 18, so we can service younger kids. And then Sarah Rosso and Stacy Kunke, they're gonna continue their backpack program. Last week, they were able to get a month's worth of food to the 53 students in K through 6. But now they've expanded that through that Google survey I talked about earlier on needs for families. They were able to identify more than double K through 12 families that need that program too. So we're going to start servicing them as well with the backpack program. That'll be through transportation and with the food and materials. So staffing, so beginning just this last Monday, certified staff, they were able to start working remotely at home. Non-certified staff started working every other day, 1 day on site, and boy, they worked very, very hard when they were on site. And then remotely from home. This is the schedule that we came up with. It's called the Daily On-Site K-12 Job Board for Paris. I really like that title.
No acronym?
No. Although we could have.
That's
Think
okay.
about that.
Yeah.
And then we have, just guess who came up with the colors. We have the purple and the gold. So Randy was involved. And then each day we have half of the paraprofessionals coming in to staff the daycare, do the meal and delivery transportation. We have them on the buses helping the bus drivers. And then also helping with gathering materials, bagging up stuff, making copies, helping office, do all kinds of things, calling families. They were calling about the internet access. So they're assigned to something. And then the people on the opposite day, if it's not your day to be here, they're taking things home, they're connecting with families, they're assisting the teachers in different ways, and also they're on call. Yesterday we were so busy we had to call in several people when it wasn't their day, and guess what? They showed up. So it was all hands on deck yesterday, and they were there very quickly, and so that is also a responsibility for them to be on call those days at a drop of a hat. So we were very thankful about that. So any staff member working from home is considered on call. This would be teachers or paras. If we are having troubles getting paras, guess what? We're gonna start calling certified staff in if we need help. All staff will get paid throughout distance learning, and that is from the governor. However, any employee refusing to work for no good reason will not get paid. We'll follow negotiated agreements. Medically fragile staff and staff with medically compromised people at home, they can remain at home without disruption of pay. Buildings will remain open for staff access. We have some teachers who don't have great reliable internet at home, and so they might have to come in from their classrooms to do some remote things with kids, but that's just what we have to do. On-site staff may be dismissed if all of our work is complete for the day, and we have done that already this week. Maybe Tuesday we did a little bit early, like 45 minutes early, because we were done. Part of our plan in Mora, and it wasn't a requirement, but we decided to put it in, family connection calls, and they're really just meant as checking in with families, the parents. How are you feeling? How are things going? How is distance learning working with your families? Are there any resources you're missing? So teachers checking in with the parents. And in the elementary, it's their homeroom rosters. In the high school, it's their Blue Day rosters. So maybe not even necessarily the kids academically that they're teaching. And we're gonna be doing that the first week of distance learning and then the third week. At that time, we didn't know it was going out that far, so we may amend that a little bit, and then it's meant to be voice to voice. And so actually calling them and connecting them, if at all possible. And then not academic, it's about care and that we're a community. And then we're gonna document those calls. If there's a place in Synergy where we can do that.
Yes, I was just gonna ask that, thank you.
Yeah, and we can run a report and make sure nobody's being missed.
Well, and the voice to voice, that's the minimum requirement, but I'm already hearing FaceTiming happening, staff staff are connected to the families they work with, and they wanna see those children. I've talked to some
Kids wanna
teachers.
see them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've talked to some teachers that have set up these Google Meets, very specifically so that they can see their kids and they can meet with their kids back and forth. And so, that's the minimum, the voice-to-voice.
And are they setting up times to meet with their class so there are multiple kids from class on at the
Ideally,
same time?
they might
Yep, I
be
just
able to
talked
do
to a
that,
seventh grade teacher today that said she's, had set up her Google Meet today, and she had, like 6 kids that, joined her on the Google Meet. And so they are, doing some of that type of stuff.
I've
already.
seen a few examples online or on Facebook where they're continuing with their morning meetings.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
great
that's-
stuff.
That's fun.
And then, we're also continuing with our Wednesday morning announcements in case anyone wants to see them. They'll be coming out, we did ours today, so, we just wanted that to continue for the kids. So that'll be something fun. We just wanted to point out that our QComp is continuing. We're gonna continue to do PLCs that, once per week, just like we always do, but it's gonna be on Google Meet. And then mentors are gonna continue to, work with their mentees, doing observations, if you will, and then, meeting, instructional coaching. The instructional coaches are gonna continue, they're gonna kind of frame it a little bit differently of looking at materials and then results of a week-long, instruction piece for a teacher. And then meeting with them Google Meet, and then, their goals are gonna continue. Some of the goals we're having to rewrite and rethink because we won't have MCAs. And so Channel was working on that today, as a matter of fact. We're trying to rethink, like, what could a teacher use now that was using MCAs, now they can't. So, she's working on that. And then our observations, we still needed to do some. And so we're gonna do them the same way that the instructional coaches are, remotely, and looking at their, materials and how they're executing those. And then, so, our distance learning, it includes all staff, just like Brent was talking about earlier. Teachers are very involved instructing and connecting with families. They've worked extremely hard the last, how many days have we had? 8 days or so?
7, this is the 7th
7
day. We
days?
had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week. This is the 7th day and we're this far along.
Seems like 2 months in the last. And then our paraprofessionals, oh my gosh, I just can't say enough about them. They have been just supportive in any and every which way. Food service, we've talked about them, but just, you should come at lunch sometime over there and watch them getting that stuff done. They have such a process and they developed it quickly and they execute. Very impressive to see. Custodial staff, they are right behind us sanitizing. And then transportation, well, they've become a delivery service and they've embraced it. The whole Chip, Gail, and all the gang, they're all involved, and it's just so impressive. And then all of the support. Tech staff, we have asked a tremendous amount from them, every single one of them, and they have just changed up what they were doing and become really, they're our go-to for so much of this, and they've been incredible, I'd say almost 24 hours a day lately.
It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, so just wanted to point out that everyone's involved and it took the whole team coming together, but we got a whole lot done. So we're all ready. Monday's coming and we're ready to go.
So this is the best plan that we could put together in 7 days. We know that it's not perfect. We know that we're gonna struggle. We know that families are gonna struggle. And so we will be monitoring and adjusting this throughout the next 4 weeks that we know that we're going to be presenting this. But also remember, this is a guide for us. This is not that we're holding everybody's feet to the fire on every single one of these assignments and every single part of this. As Brenda had mentioned at the beginning, flexible. We have to be flexible, our families have to be flexible with us, and both of us, adults and on our staff as well as in their households, need to be flexible with them. I talked to one mother this morning that said, you know, just so I could be ready, I had to practice, just to know that I could do this. And so I sat down with one of the lessons, it was a 20-minute lesson, and oh my gosh, I had to keep my child's focus, a fourth grade boy, for 20 consecutive minutes. I was absolutely exhausted at the end of it. How do you people do this all day long? And so we know that. We know this isn't going to go real smooth. We know there's gonna be bumps, and we're gonna be here to work together, to support each other, to get through this, at least the next 30 days, and beyond if we need to. But we wanna make it very clear to our families, as well as our staff, that we all need to be flexible through this process. When we got the initial call, there were 3 things that we were told very specifically, and in Brenda's plan, you may have heard that everybody's getting paid, unless they refuse to work. If they can't work for some reason, there's a medical fragile exemption, but everybody is gonna get paid through this unless they refuse to work. And we haven't had much problem with that at all. We have had a few people that have had meltdowns and walked off the job, but after they rested and had an opportunity to catch their breath, they came back. Absolutely. And so that's not stuff that normally happens, normally that we allow. But we're working together to get through this stuff. And we just have to make sure that our families understand that as well. We can support each other, and we have all those connections, and we thought about with this stay at home, why can't we just close the buildings? Well, we have staff members that don't have access to internet, high-speed internet. They wanna be able to come into the buildings. We have to be open for the daycare piece. We have to be open for the meal service piece. So we can't close the buildings. So as much as we're going to encourage everybody that can to work remotely, like I said last week, I tried to impose that on the staff that to go home, and they kept looking at me, well, you're not home, you're here, you can't tell us to go home. Well, I'm gonna go home next week. Tomorrow, I'm gonna pack up my stuff at the end of the day, and I'm gonna try the best that I can to stay out of here Monday through Friday and see how it goes. And I'm going to expect the staff that can work remotely to do the same thing, because that's what we need to do. We need to model that for our families, we need to model it for our students, we need to model it for our staff. So we'll continue, and maybe a week from now, the report that you're gonna get is gonna look way different than the week after that, or the week after that, or the next time we have a board meeting. But we're gonna be doing the best we can every day.
And a couple things, I did, just this afternoon, I got a template from MDE for our distance learning, a little late, but, and it fulfills everything on there. I quickly went over and made sure that everything was included, so it is. And then, just for you guys to know too, we've shortened the hours in both of the offices, so our staff isn't here as long, and then they're going to be flexing every other day as well. Lane was doing all this stuff from home today for me, the Google Forms and stuff, so we'll be working like that remotely with each other. So, yeah. We'll be
So
here.
in 7 days, the goal is that we have something for every staff member to do that has to be a part of this. 270 employees that are going to be doing something different possibly, or doing some of the things that they've been told to do. One thing that we were told very specifically is all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden as far as the abiding by the negotiated contracts, but all of a sudden the job descriptions get blended and melded together, as Brenda had mentioned. There's no requirement for us to follow strictly job descriptions. That flexibility was given to us by the governor, that if you need XYZ people to do ABC, that's okay. You can sign that. Now, one thing we do is we ask for volunteers first. We've also asked our staff to let us know if they have any specific skills that they can share with us, things that we may not even be aware of. And it's been amazing how many people have skills that I didn't know about, or administrators didn't know about, and people have stepped forward and requested to do those things, which has been phenomenal. The flip side of that, because of all the healthcare data privacy pieces, there's all kinds of things that people have for medical exemptions under this situation that we had no clue about. They worked every day with a number of health issues that we just plain weren't concerned about, because we couldn't even ask, and they weren't obliged to tell us. But they've come forward, some have come forward and said, I don't know if you know this, but I have this, and in this situation, we have to abide by that. Some of them have even didn't want us to find out from their friend or their spouse that told us about it because they wanna be here. They didn't wanna get sent home because of an issue that they had. But we need to help take care of their health, as well. And so we're trying to abide by the data privacy pieces as much as we can, but also protect our staff as much as we can also.
That was a very good overview. Thank you.
A lot of moving parts and pieces. Wow. Thank you again for your
And in that volunteerism, Brenda volunteered to coordinate this for us. This isn't something, now, I wasn't there, couldn't see if everybody was looking at her, or if everybody took a step back and she just got caught up. But she did volunteer, so I really do appreciate it.
Definitely going above and beyond to do what needs to be done. Thank you. Bob?
I just wanted to say thank you, great report, and thank you for acknowledging Mark Frederickson for her fantastic job, and she's gonna be sadly missed.
Yes.
Thank you for acknowledging
Great
her.
job.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on. We have another report. Everybody have a superintendent's report tonight, or are you rolling?
I think they explained that earlier, at least I caught it.
What'd she
You
say?
want me to follow that up?
Yeah, with
Didn't expect it to be any big revelation. Just giving you an opportunity.
I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have,
And you said it was all part of the distance learning plan. Everybody is all hands on deck for that, I know.
I think most of the, things that you, have to approve it, so you've seen, this past 2 weeks, have been an absolute whirlwind, and this has been our focus. We have had every single day, we have had a commissioner's call. And then on top of that, some governor's press conferences, and the amount of information that came out and was wrong, was interpreted wrong to start with, and then, people got after us for not communicating quickly enough, and it was changing, it was emerging every single day. Initially, the first thing I asked was, this distance learning sounds like emergency learning. We're ahead of districts, we're ready to kick this in. And so I asked in the Superintendent's Association, they had asked us to funnel things through them so that they would talk to the Department of Education. And initially, we were told, yes, you can implement your e-learning plan. Well, 12 hours later, when I woke up, and not 12 hours of sleep, but about 4 hours later, but from when I had asked the question at 5 in the afternoon, I got that answer by 5 in the morning, it had changed. No, you can't. You can institute your e-learning. This is a distance learning plan, and it has to address every single employee in the district. And it's not up to them to come up with work. And it's taken a lot of creativity and a lot of information to find out what and how we're gonna deliver this, and how we're going to involve every single 270 employees and have a job for everybody to do. But we feel very confident going into Monday morning, we have as good a plan as we could possibly create for our community. It might not work in Robbinsdale, it might not work in Rochester, but it's gonna be pretty darn good for Mora. That's my report.
Thank you. It just doesn't seem right if you don't end up the reports. Thank you, and thanks Brenda again. So, brings us to upcoming dates, you can look at those, and I guess there's probably a chance that the April meeting will be done differently than it is tonight, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It will still be the 4th Thursday of the month, so other than that, you can read through the upcoming dates and activities coming up. Is there any other board business? All right, second open forum, and Troy Erickson would like to address the board. How many school buses are we running every day, Craig? Do you know? 7, thank you very much. And so our bus driver is also rotating through
Well, some of
variety
them
of
can't
jobs.
drive.
Yeah, if you
because
think
they
about a
have-
lot of our drivers, they're, and medical fragile and some issues, so.
Yeah.
Come on in.
They need you too, sir.
We're on
Yeah.
about half of rounds.
Eventually.
I will go out so we won't be overcrowded here.
Oh.
Two things I guess I want to talk about tonight. And the first thing is, I know you guys went and you're looking forward, but on your board report through the athletic director, there's some in the past that I want to make sure I can highlight it, and I want to make sure I thank the board, thank the administration, thank everyone that was allowed us to have our annual lifting performance on the stage on Wednesday before all this stuff happened. It was a spectacular day. After lifting, we went over and watched our boys win that game over at St. Cloud State, so that was the last of the kind of good feelings that was happening here. So,
Yes.
but I'm very thankful for the board support for our speed and strength program. Very thankful for administration allowing us to bring all the kids in this school building into our auditorium and watch the student athletes perform and watch them actually show what they've been working on through the whole school year through, and it's just so appreciated by myself that I work with them, but the actual individual kids, the student athletes that go up there, they really appreciate being able to show that off. So in the report, it has a lot of records in there. So please read through that. There's a lot that happened. Another nice thing that happened that day was we had 75, we awarded our speed and strength letters that day. There were 75 student athletes that were up on stage that earned speed and strength letters this year, and that's the highest we've ever had, and it's growing, and it's every sport, every gender, every age. I mean, it's a lot of fun down there. So thank you for allowing us to do that and supporting our speed and strength program. I really do appreciate it. The other point I wanted to get to is I made a trip today over to Pine City because I had to do some work over there, and then as I was coming back from there, I stopped by because I had ordered some stuff at Lee's Pro Shop. So I stopped by and I talked to some friends there at Lee's Pro Shop, and as I was doing that, they had mentioned to me that our new superintendent had talked to him earlier today and was going over there at 5 o'clock. I don't know if you made that trip over there or not. He's gonna go over there at 5 o'clock to make sure he got some Mora Mustang Blue.
Yeah.
And for me, that means a lot, because I bleed Mora Mustang Blue. And that is an awesome gesture. I appreciate you reaching out to our friends at Lee's Pro Shop to get you situated as best you can on short notice. But I want to make sure that I pass on to you. They said you're large, size-wise, so I'm working on it. So if these aren't the right size, I want to make sure you.
There's a speed and strength program
But there's some of our speed and strength program shirts in here, and there's some more football shirts in here. It's what I have available for you. But I just want to welcome you to Mora Public Schools and on behalf of the football program. Good luck.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, nice try.
Just say happy birthday, Mom.
Oh, happy birthday, Mom. I called her.
I know, I told her already.
Well, I really appreciate that gesture by Troy. In the other districts I've worked in, when I left, I generally have left about 2/3 of my Graham gear and 2/3 of my Hinkley Finlayson gear. And I was gonna leave about 2/3 of my gear for Dan, but I'm not.
Yeah, you're not.
And you're not going.
And I'm not going.
It's still here.
Alright, so, I think that brings us to the end. I don't know, I haven't heard of anybody else wanting to make any public comment or address the board, so, we'll move for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bob Dillon, second by Bob J. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Alright, thank you everybody, and thank you to our audience members, appreciate you being here tonight. Stay safe and well, everybody.
Yeah, what's next month gonna look like?